Welcome to an all-new episode of Get Lit with Lianna, the podcast. Join me as I sit down with a new guest author in each episode to discuss their books, careers, and everything in between. Today, I'm joined by author Ariana Godoy, who wrote the Through My Window series. You may recognize this title from its epic movie adaptation that's now streaming on Netflix. I highly recommend it. It is so steamy. But I had the best time chatting with Ariana about how she became a Wattpad author, what the transition has been like to traditionally publish, how it's been making these books into movies, what we can expect from the upcoming movies, and of course, what kind of books she is coming down the pipeline. We also got into what makes a good steamy book, how she writes these scenes, and of course, any advice she has to aspiring writers who are writing on a platform like Wattpad. So without further ado, my conversation with author Ariana Godoy starts right now. Welcome, Ariana, to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. I really love Through My Window, and I really love the Netflix movie. So this is so much fun that we get to have this conversation today. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to have my first podcast.
I can't believe I'm so excited. I'm so honored to be your first podcast ever. Before we get into talking about the books and obviously the amazing success you've had with these books, I would love to know first about how you maybe started getting into writing before writing on Wattpad and having this whole situation kind of take off.
I was writing for myself. I feel like every writer has that. I'm not very unique, I was just writing for myself and enjoying it and just reading whatever I was writing. And that started when I was pretty young. I think it was around I was 9, 10 years old.
Okay.
Because I was a very good reader since I was a kid. Like my mom was like, "Oh my gosh, why are you reading that?" I would read like encyclopedias and stuff.
Wow. Okay.
Because I was so eager to read that when books run out in my house, because we didn't have that many, I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
I just jumped to whatever I found in the bookcase,
Amazing. So tell me about Through My Window and how you started writing that on Wattpad. Like, where did that idea come to you and how did you find Wattpad? I would love to hear more about that background.
Actually, I started writing in English first in Wattpad, which is, weird because my first language is Spanish.
Yeah.
So I wrote in English until 2015, 2016. And then I realized there was like a big Spanish population on Wattpad. I was like, what am I doing? What am I not writing in my first language? So I went ahead and started writing Through My Window. And it started like a book that I just wanted to have fun with, like I just want to enjoy it. And the chapters were really short and people were just eager reading it. So it was a very fun experience.
Wow. And how did you hear of Wattpad? Like, how did you even know, like, this is where I need to put my story on?
I actually started on Wattpad in 2009. Okay. So it's been more than a decade. Oh yeah. My gosh, that's way too long. Crazy. Yeah, but it was, it was around the time that Stephenie Meyer, I never know how to pronounce her name.
Twilight
was like vampires were the boom. Mm-hmm. So I was looking for vampire stories and, Google. And since I was living in Venezuela, I didn't really have the resources to buy books. So I was just like, I need to read free stories because, I'm poor. So I just went ahead and they start downloading stories. And then I realized it was just normal people. I mean, like normal people, anybody could post there. So I was like, oh, maybe I should do it.
Crazy. So how did the story of Through My Window come to you?
It's actually inspiring a little bit on my college experience. I had a very crazy neighbor.
Okay.
I had a huge crush on him and he was, he took advantage of that. So it wasn't a really good experience, but I feel like it took, like some of the good parts and some of the crazy parts of it and, mixed it up in the story. And I feel that that's what made it very genuine to people, because a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I've been there, cringe, so embarrassing in that moment when you have like this huge crush and stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, okay.
That's so funny. Does he know that you wrote this book kind of based on some of your experiences? Have you heard from him at all?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I need to hear more about this. What the hell?
Not the tea here in the podcast. Yeah, he actually texted me because he was pretty mad about how I portrayed him.
Oh.
Like I was not that bad. I was not that. And I was like, why are you getting so pressed for something that happened like, I don't know, almost 15 years ago? Like,
I'm
chill.
dying. That's so funny. Okay, so those who haven't like read the books or seen the Netflix movie, can you give a little synopsis about like what the story world is about?
About Through My Window?
Yeah.
Well, it tells the story of Raquel, a girl, that is going through it. She has like a huge crush on her neighbor, and she kind of like stalks him a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, she stalks him a lot.
Yeah.
A little bit, like
a little bit is a little not so generous.
and he like, he starts like interacting with her, and they start, like realizing that they have a lot of chemistry, and there's this back and forward, and it's very, I feel like it's very emotional. Through My Window is a story that is very character driven.
Mm-hmm.
The characters are the one moving the story with their emotions, with their changings, with their growth. So it's a little ride. You'll enjoy it though.
Everyone will enjoy it. But when you first started writing this book on Wattpad, what was the fan response like? Was it like immediately people were dying for more, or was it kind of like a slow burn? Like, what was that trajectory in terms of the fan response?
It was instantly like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? I feel like a lot of people, found themselves in Raquel, some of them in Ares, like, oh, yes, I'm like that. I'm closed up, and it takes me a time to open up to people.
Yeah.
So people were like constantly, like I would post a chapter and it would be like immediate, like, when is the next one coming out? And, it's a long book. Now that I think about it, it's a long book because it's like 70 chapters or something.
So how long was that writing process from beginning to end on Wattpad? Like, how long did it take for you to get that whole story out?
I think it took me like a year and a half.
Wow.
Because I was like constantly updating. But there was a point like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is too long.
That's so funny.
My Spanish publisher, when they saw like the manuscript the first time, and they were like, oh, excuse me.
So crazy.
We need to cut some of these, things out, because this is not going to make it to print this long. And I was like, okay.
Right. So now I'd love to talk kind of about the transition from Wattpad Online to trad publishing with Wattpad. How did that whole conversation happen? How did you get your story online into an actual book form? What was the development of that? What kind of changes did you have to make? I would love to hear more about that transition.
So first I had like a story in English called My Wattpad Love, and that got the attention of Planeta, which is a Spanish publisher. So that was my first book, in paper by a publisher, and Planeta actually is leading to my DMs on Wattpad.
Dying. We love to hear that.
She was like, oh, hi, we're very interested in your story. And I was like, no way, like this has to be a scam. And then she sent me her email like, oh, we can talk over email, more professional. And her email was at planeta.com. And I was like, oh,
this is real.
This is real. Yeah. She's so real, because I was very dismissive, of her. I was like, you're trying to pull me, because that's not how it works. We all know how hard it is, to get your work out there, especially in paper.
For sure.
And that book came out, and then it was until I think 2019 that Through My Window caught. But this one was Penguin Random House.
Okay.
So it took me like 3 to 4 years to get, another book out.
Right. So after the book came out, was Through You, the new book that's coming out, was that ever published online on Wattpad, or was it only traditionally published?
No, they're all on Wattpad, like all my stories.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Very exciting. So now the Through You is coming out in print, but for those who have been a fan of yours or have been reading, they could have read that book online before, correct?
Yes, on Wattpad. Mm-hmm.
Really exciting. So I obviously need to talk to you about the movies, because I'm not even going to lie, that's how I was first introduced to you. I'm obsessed with any form of a steamy romance. That's my favorite thing to read, to watch, anything. So when I saw the first trailer for Through My Window, I was immediately hooked. I was like, this looks spicy and epic and so steamy and everything that I love about a romance story. What was it like for you to get that call from Netflix Spain to be like, okay, we're going to make your book into a movie? Tell me about that whole experience.
The first time, I feel like I talked first, with the producers, because of course the producers were very interested, and they were like, oh, we want to sell the story. And there's a lot of waiting, because Production takes time, okay?
Yes. Yes.
A lot of people are like, oh, but we got the news about this book and it's been 4 years and there's no news. It's like, girl, it takes time, okay?
Yeah.
It moves so slow sometimes.
Yeah.
But I was actually very lucky with Through My Window because Netflix Spain moved real fast. It was like a year. They filmed it, released it, and I was like, okay.
Crazy.
But before that, we were waiting for a year and a half, and we kept getting like, rejections and stuff. But the producer was very, I don't know, determined is the word. Like he was very sure that he was gonna, make it work. And every time we got a rejection, he was like, do not worry, we're gonna sell this.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, you have the confidence that I do not, but yeah, let's go ahead.
Crazy.
And finally he was like, oh yeah, we sold it, but we can tell you yet until everything is signed. I was like, okay. And then when he said, it was like, oh, it's one of the big ones. And I was thinking maybe a channel, like, like a local channel or something like that. Yeah. It did not cross my mind that it was going to be Netflix. Like, no way. And then he was like, no, it's Netflix Spain. I was like, shut up.
Craziness.
You're lying. Like I spent honestly like a week trying to I could remember and I'd be like, no, it's Netflix. I can't believe it. Like my book it's just insane.
I can't even imagine what that's like for an author to then see like your story translated into film. Did you have any involvement with the production and casting and any of the artistic decisions maybe in the film? Like how involved maybe were you?
I was very involved. I could look at the scripts. I could, give my opinions, say what things needed to change. It was very, at the beginning, it was like a hit on the face because, like when you see a script, it's such a different format from a book.
For sure.
That is like a shock. So you stay there and you're like, oh my gosh, and you start panicking and stuff. But then you realize that it's just a different format. Mm-hmm. It's never going to be, exactly the same as the book. And, readers are very strong about what they like and what they feel like, oh my gosh, it has to be exact, but it's just not easy to please everybody.
100%. So now, I mean, I guess we can kind of talk about this. They've announced that 2 more movies are being made, correct? So I know, is it fair to assume that the 2 movies that are being made are further, like they're parts of the storybook, right? Like, is it Through My Window, like is now Through You book movie 2? Like what's the connection?
So the next 2 movies are not based on the other 2 books because, the Hidalgo brothers story is a trilogy.
Right.
So you've got the first one, Through My Window, that is about Ares. And the second one is about Temis. And the third one is about the younger brother. So what they're doing is like, we're following the story of Ares and Raquel, and we still can see like the story of the brothers too, but, more like secondary characters.
Got it. Okay. So we're staying in the Through My Window story world for the movies.
Yes. Exactly.
So fun. Okay. That's really exciting to hear. I'm sure fans of the movies are just going to be like dying over it. Do you know when these movies are coming out? Like, is there any info on that or it's kind of still in pre-production?
I know, but I can tell you.
Okay. That's fair. But at least you have like info. So the ball must be rolling, which is what I'm sure everybody wants to know.
Yes.
That's really exciting. So now Through You is out. When this goes live, the book will be out, and obviously it's available on Wattpad. Can you give a little synopsis as to what this story follows?
Well, with Through You, we have Claudia, which is a girl that works in the Hidalgo brothers household. You got the little cliche of, friends, the childhood friends to enemies to lovers.
Yeah, we love the tropes.
It's a little bit complicated, but we actually dive into more of the older brother, which is Artemis, the cold one, the one that is always, oh, I'm the CEO, I don't have a heart and stuff.
Yeah.
So in this story, we're just, learning about him and Claudia and how their relationship, because when they were, since they were like growing up together, they had like this, care for each other. Mm-hmm. And then that evolved and became love. Mm-hmm. But then for some reason, something happened and they like went different ways. And then it's 5 years after.
Yeah.
Because we always love that.
We love that. We love a timeline jump.
Yes. And now they see each other again and they're realizing, oh, maybe, my feelings for you are not sold. And yes. I still have some stuff for you. So, Basically, it's that I'm a terrible person at giving synopsis. So
No, you're doing an amazing job. But when you were writing Through My Window, did you kind of know like, okay, this is how the story is going to move forward. This is how we're going to write through you. Like, did you kind of have all of this all planned out, or you were first just focused on like Raquel's story, and then you were like, if it goes somewhere, it goes somewhere. Like, what was that outlining process?
So for Through My Window, it was just about having fun. Like I never really thought about the brothers or whatever. I was going to explore that. But then when the story ended, and I realized that I make secondary characters too interesting. Because people are always like, oh, but now I would like a story of this random character that, show up 3 times. I'm like, how? Like, how? But yeah, the brothers were like a big hit in the community, and they were like, oh, we want to know more. And I was like, I kind of want to know more too, because it's very interesting to see how the dynamic in a household affects growing up, and how different people can be, even though they're brothers, even though they have the same mom and dad, So it's like, it's insane how different they are. So I was very excited to dig into that for the other 2 brothers.
That's so fun. And now we obviously need to talk about steamy scenes, because you're just like really good at writing steam. I need to know like your method to the madness. Like, how do you set the vibe to write steamy scenes? How do you edit steamy scenes? Do you edit them? Like, tell me all about writing intimacy, because I know that a lot of people listen to this podcast, they are like me and they live for the steam.
The steam is actually like, I don't know. I kind of feel it when I write it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is too much. I need a break. I need to take a little break. But I feel like as writers, we, especially when we're writing from the girl's point of view, like focusing a lot on, on the sensations, because we are very, everywhere, driven. And men are more like, visual. So they're more like, So that's a little bit of the difference that I do when I'm writing, either from his point of view or her point of view. Like men are more visual, girls are more about feeling, feeling it everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
So and I also listen, I gotta admit, I listen to very dirty music.
Wait, what kind of dirty music? Like, what is dirty music?
Like music that has like, very...
Like sensual.
Yeah, sensual and very foul language.
Oh my God, you like really get yourself in the mood. You set a vibe.
Yes, exactly.
I'm dying. That's epic. And then what's like the editing process like? Like, does your editor have to help you? How does that kind of work?
Well, obviously we edit, a lot the sex scenes, because they have like when you write it the first time, it's like what you wrote, and then you check it out and you're like, oh, this is a little bit weird, too much. Wait, where is her leg? And all that. So yeah, you have to fix it. And my editor, I actually have a funny story for Through My Window, because we were when she was editing, because Through My Window, I think, is the book that I've written that has the most steamy scenes ever.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was having fun. There was nobody limiting me.
I love that.
And when she was editing, she would put like comments on it, like, where's the condom?
Oh my gosh, like the technicalities. Yeah. That's funny.
I would just die. And I was like, but did he throw away the condom? You didn't mention that. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I would see like because it was the first time for me, somebody seeing my, my work and editing, and seeing that comments, I would just turn red and I'd be like so embarrassed. And I'm like, okay, yes, here it is.
Fact checking your sex scenes.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So now that Through You is coming out as a physical book, or rather it's out when people are listening to this, what are you working on next aside from all these movies coming out? Like, what can fans expect from you coming down the pipeline?
I'm writing a lot.
I'm sure you are.
On and off Wattpad, but right now I'm editing one of the books that is going to come out in Spanish in April. But for books in English, I'm still working on some, so I can't say anything yet, but there's more coming. Okay?
That's so exciting. I'm sure everyone will be so excited to hear that. Do you find it hard to write in English when Spanish is your mother tongue, or is it very easy for you? I know you said you started writing on Wattpad first in English, but like that's a crazy talent to be able to do both and do both well.
It's complicated because I feel like sometimes it gets to you. Sometimes you take with you some from the grammar from Spanish to English, and sometimes you bring some of the English to Spanish. Like I had that problem a lot because I wrote like 6 years on Wattpad in English, and then I came to Spanish, and then I wanted, for example, like grammar. English is very like, would you put a period every single time that you can.
Mhm.
In Spanish, it's not like that. You know, you have the little commas and so I came to Spanish and I just wanted to like, boom, boom, boom.
Period.
And then my editor was like, what? No, girl, that's not how it works. I was like, so I had to like basically relearn a lot of the grammar rules in Spanish, a lot of the wording, a lot of the phrasing. So it's kind of weird because you would think, you know, it's my mother tongue. But yeah, it can mess up your brain.
I'm sure. I mean, it just speaks to your talent and your ability to do both so well. But before I let you go, one of the biggest questions I got from people, because I kind of teased that you and I were doing this, one of the biggest questions I got from people were wondering if you have any advice for people that are maybe starting out on Wattpad or any type of like writing online source. Like what sort of advice you have maybe to getting your story noticed or recognized or heard? I know like it's really, really hard to stand out when there's so much out there. And you've done it so successfully. So I think that a piece of advice from you would mean a lot to those who are curious.
So 2 words, consistency and patience. Because I've seen a lot of writers, especially new writers, come on Wattpad and be like, oh, I've been on the app for 2 months and I don't have, you know, 1 million readers. So it's not going to happen overnight. I keep telling them, remember, I've been on Wattpad since 2009. Yeah. So I literally built this for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like right now is, you know, that I'm, you know, picking up all the stuff from the work that I've been, you know, breaking my back for 10 years. So you got to be patient and, you know, don't get frustrated. I know it's a little bit discouraging when you see the numbers and they're not, you know, the big, but something that really works on Wattpad is being consistent on updating. Even if you have like 2 readers, like if they know that you update every Saturday, you're going to have your 2 readers on Saturday.
Right.
So be very consistent with your updating, and TikTok is a really great tool.
Wow. Okay.
Just put, you know, a little bit snap of your scenes or whatever, something that casts. Unfortunately, you gotta, you know, do something really, sometimes extreme to get people's attention. I gotta be honest, you gotta be a little bit, you know, crazy sometimes to get people's attention, and then, you know, let them comment. Oh, don't put the title of the book. Let them comment. What book is it? What book is it? What book is it? And that will help the algorithm. And then one day later, you start, you know, replying to the comments and giving the book name. That actually helps a lot.
Wow. That's a really good piece of advice. Okay. I'm definitely going to let people know. I mean, people will listen to this, but others that ask, that's a great piece of advice.
Thank you.
Well, it is a great, you're welcome, because it is great. But I am so excited for everybody to read through you and obviously to see the other movies that are coming out from the Through My Window story world and everything else you have coming out. This is so exciting for everyone who's such a fan of yours. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I had the best time connecting with you, and I'm just wishing you continued success. Like, you're really out here doing the most. So good for you. Keep doing it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Lianna. This has been an amazing experience and my first podcast.
Yay, I'm so happy to have done this with you.